What's going on, guys? Welcome to a random video on our channel. In this video, we'll be reviewing the iPhone 6s Plus. And if you guys know me, you know I'm an Android fan. But in this situation, when I get the Nexus 6 activated on my new carrier, they were having issues activating it. So in the meantime, I had to get another phone. I went from the iPhone SE to the iPhone 6s Plus. And by the way, today they actually activated my Nexus 6, so I can return this phone. But my attitude towards all of this is, why not review it? Because if I had an opportunity to really see what the iPhone is about, I wanted to take that opportunity, because this is what it's about when you're using a phone. We need to know which is the best phone or which is the best platform, and the best way to do it is use the phones. So in this situation with this iPhone 6s Plus, this is the rose gold, and by the way, they didn't have any other color. Just looking at the design of this, you notice the physical buttons, and if you look at the button over here, that's to turn the volume off. I just think it's a pointless button. You really don't need that. And as far as the design of it, there's nothing really wrong with the iPhone 6s Plus. It has a cool design. Is it the design of a phone that I would want to use every day? Probably not. So in this situation where I compare this phone to the Nexus 6, this is not a phone I would want to use all the time. For the iPhone fans out there, for someone that's interested in a phablet, it is a cool design overall. As far as the screen compared to the Nexus 6, I didn't like that it was a thinner screen, because if you notice that part about it, it's not going to make viewing videos or even playing games on this phone any easier or more enjoyable. And then when we're talking about the display itself, it does have a Retina display, so that's of course great. But when we're talking about having an iPhone, what's most important? Well, at least to me, it's the platform running on the phone. I want that to be most impressive. What I noticed about this phone compared to the SE is that the SE is absolute crap. I'm going to say it again. The iPhone SE is a piece of crap. This phone is actually not too bad. It has an experience with a phablet here where you're actually getting what iOS is all about. The only thing I'll say about iOS though is that it does have an outdated design. Even the way the menus are designed, it's just, again, it's an outdated approach. It's not intuitive. That's one of the things I found with Android that's far better than anything that iOS has to offer. I know the phone's not on, but again, it might as well not be on when you're using iOS, at least for myself, because I was not impressed with that aspect of iOS. And I know Apple likes to make things simple, but they also don't like to change things. And I think that's one of the flaws with iOS. You basically have a bunch of people that are going to accept all the problems with iOS because they're Apple fans. Again, no offense to Apple fans, but if we compare this to the Android community, who really points out the problems with Android, what happens is that the platform gets even better because Google pays attention to that. They actually take the feedback and they innovate. This is what I'm looking for from iOS and Apple. What I found with the iPhone 6s Plus is that I really didn't notice much about it that was impressive to me. Even taking pictures or using the phone itself. Yeah, it's interesting when you're using a phablet, but when we're talking about having an iPhone or even a phablet, we're talking about the best experience possible in the mobile market, because again, you know, some people might want a small phone. We're talking about phones with a screen size like this, where you can actually enjoy the games and the videos that you want to watch on your phone. This is what the iPhone's about, or even a Nexus phone. But when you compare the platforms, there is one platform that's really innovative, that would be Android, and then you have iOS that doesn't really like to make changes, like I said before. So this is one of those situations. It is about preference, but I'm also talking about how they can make iOS better. I think one of the things they really need to do, they need to accept the fact that there's problems with it, that the design is flawed, and also you do have some glitches. I mean, iPhone SE, that was pretty much a disaster when it came to texting, because we're talking about just texting something and the keyboard not being responsive. That's an absolute joke. So that was not good. But we're talking about making the platform even better. You have to do something with navigation. You have to make it even simpler. You have to have a better design there. The point about all of this is that you have to create features. You have to continuously innovate, and you have to give the platform itself an opportunity to be even better. If you're going to continuously throw out the same stuff to the same people who want to buy an iPhone, that's okay too, because the people are accepting it out there. But for me personally, as someone who would think about, and I am being honest about this, if there was a great phone out there and it just happened to be an iPhone, I'm going to pay attention to it. But the problem is this: there's not enough impressive things with iOS or even the iPhone that would make me want to switch from Android to iOS, and that's a fact. And the reason that's going on right now is because I don't find anything that unique or impressive about this phone. I know some people want to compare this to Windows Phone, and then they say it's a combination of Android and all sorts of stuff, and then have iOS there. it is not a good platform. I'm saying that right here because I know a lot of people are annoyed with the iPhone SE review and they didn't like the things I said about Apple and iOS, whatever it is. But if they're smart, and by the time that Android becomes 3D, because we know the next versions of Android are going to have VR, we're talking about a platform that's going to include VR, that's making changes, that's making the menus better, that's continuously innovating. And then you have iOS over here on the iPhone with the outdated design with the buttons. And yes, that is outdated. Do you really need another physical button to tell someone to turn the volume off their phone, or even have a physical button here? It's completely outdated. This is a new era of touch screens where all the buttons should just be on the screen, and that's the way I look at these phones. Yeah, you know, the Nexus 6 has some volume rockers. That's okay. That's not a problem because they're almost seamless. You don't see that here. You have these physical buttons that are not exactly seamless, and they weren't well designed. And that's the honest truth about the iPhone 6s Plus. And I know there's going to be people out there that say, but Jonathan, my favorite YouTubers, they're all saying the iPhone's great. How can you say it's not a good phone? I'm saying it right here. This phone is garbage. It's not as good as the Nexus phone. Okay, the iPhone 6s Plus, it's not garbage. It's just not as good as an Android phone. How about that? And then there's going to be other people out there say, but Jonathan, there's not another phone like the iPhone out there. That is the best phone on the market. Well, I'm going to tell you also, Android's the best platform in the world. So again, I am going to be looking at the Nexus phones. How about that? And we're talking about expensive phones here. This phone was $800 plus off contract. So if you're just going to go out there and buy a phone because it's an iPhone or Apple makes it, and you don't want to compare it to the other phones, that is your choice. But for me personally, I want to know what the best phone is out there on the market. So I'm not saying the phone is not good. All I'm saying is that if you're going to purchase a phone like this, you would probably want to compare it to the Android phones. I said that in a previous video, but it's the honest truth. If we're looking at these phones and we're going to compare the best phones on the market, and someone asked me recently if I'm going to be looking at the new Nexus phones that are coming out, of course I am, because those are the phones to pay attention to. I think Android is the best platform in the world, and I think the Nexus phones are the best phones on the market. But I would like to know what you guys think. Post your comments down below. Are you interested in an iPhone, next versions of the iPhone, even Nexus phones? Let me know, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. I'll see you guys later. Peace out.